Thank you for being here on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday morning. I want to talk to you guys today about the topic on high risk and high rewards in our life. I think of kind of the different steps that we take along the practice where there feels like there's a very high risk. Sometimes the risk comes in the form of kind of sacrificing our ego or change or some kind of challenge that we have to push ourselves beyond. And the other side of high risk is high reward or and possibly high consequences as well. So it makes the aspect around high risk very tentative for people to take on. You know, we live in a world that wants safety and consistency and knowing about what the norm is or what is known, and so that we have familiarity around that comfort. But for those of us who have picked up this practice, we've already taken that first step in making that, do we call it progress or process, or being around the process around knowing what it's like to take high risks, and also having felt and reaped some of the benefits of the high rewards. And the first part is building a consistent practice, because in the beginning, when we start to meditate, it seems risky in the sense that we have to carve out a certain amount of time in our life where we feel that everything else in life is more important. And we do that, and over time, consistently, we risk also being maybe laughed at or judged by others, family members or relationships who, aren't familiar with this practice. But we take that step in taking that high risk. And we also, in some unconscious, conscious way, we know that we're getting changed through that process. So the rewards over time, we see through, a little more balance in our lives, some more joy and happiness, maybe some stillness and peace. But after we cultivate that consistent practice, that's the, initial step, there's always more. And so you find that the next step of maybe taking that next high risk in this process of life, of practice, is sharing it with others. And the sharing comes around and comes about in maybe people asking you, something's different about you. You seem like you feel really centered and calm around certain things and aren't thrown this way and that. What is it? And maybe you share with them a little bit about your meditation practice. And they might hear it and they might want to learn more. And then you direct them to the resources or Dharma Center to be able to come and sit for a class on meditation. And that is also very risky, because when you take that step and risk of sharing your practice, a practice that has become very sacred to you, something that you've reaped so many rewards and benefits from, it's scary to share it with others, where, again, there might be judgment, there might be some backlash, there are all sorts of consequences because of this high risk endeavor. And that's the next kind of piece around it. And then as we move further along the process, the next high risk endeavor is teaching this practice. And I have some smiles around this room. And I'll speak from my experience. It absolutely is and feels very much like a high risk endeavor when you teach a practice that, again, started as being yours and very personal and very sacred, this very secluded time that's yours. And, now you bring it into kind of a public forum with many more eyes on the practice, and on you as well. The risk feels very great, and the ego comes into play. But at the same time, there are also numerous rewards that come from teaching and sharing the practice, because in essence, you're sharing what could potentially alleviate suffering for others who are suffering and in pain. And the benefits are huge for them. And when you are able to see that change in them, it's also hugely rewarding for yourself. So that's the third piece around kind of this high risk endeavor. And I feel like the piece beyond that, the fourth one, which isn't necessarily the last one, is just kind of the next of taking high risk is becoming a mentor for others through this practice. So really, it's almost like you've come full circle in some ways, where you've taken a very personal practice, started sharing it, talking about it a little bit more openly, and then you actually in a teaching setting where you're actually sharing it with others formally. And then you go beyond that, where it's formal and it's informal mixed, where you start mentoring someone else. Because not only is that in a teaching format, but then you also, personalize it for that individual. And that also is hugely high risk, in a such a way where you're having to come encounter with more of your own, um, what do we call them, rough edges, because I'm sure they will reflect back to you so many wonderful teachings that you'll be able to further grow.
Step that line down.
And there are truly great rewards that come from that. And again, not to belittle kind of the consequences that are also at play in all these various different endeavors. There is huge consequences if we as an individual aren't consistently polishing our own practice. And that's where I feel this saying of, our practice being like the razor's edge is very much that with high risk, there are absolutely high rewards that is beyond our own limited mindsets that we can experience, and so beyond what we can even express sometimes in words to others. And at the same time, there are also, consequences. And when I think of what I would define as, what is risk and what essentially is high risk, I think of the first initial one is, well, there's a few different pieces, so I'll just name them. Maybe they're not in order. But one of them is first the suffering and pain when you've felt like you've reached your limit, if you will, and you want that change. And you want that change more than you want the familiarity of the suffering. So when you recognize that, that's kind of the initial piece. And then after that, you really feel out where your boundaries are. And risk is really moving beyond those boundaries, which is why it's risky. It's unknown territory. It's not something we've had an experience around, therefore we're not sure what to expect. And then moving beyond those boundaries, though, we think, okay, if I just move beyond the boundaries, then I'm all set and I'm good. I think there's a missing piece around when we push beyond those boundaries, there are challenges there. And the challenges are there inherently for you to make sure that you really do want to push beyond and you really want to take this step. Really, really checking in if you really are sick and tired of being sick and tired, of that suffering. Or if, oh, maybe that challenging looks a little too ominous right now. I think I'm a little comfortable here, with my familiarity. And once you move through that challenge, if you choose to do that, that peace then turns into change. And change is that kind of culminating factor of, the various transformations that we make along this path. They're sometimes very minute ones, and sometimes they're larger ones. And the overarching thing is we already are practicing, this very scary rule out there where not a lot of people out there would want to practice something that has high risk, and therefore we receive and reap the rewards of high rewards. And it's not always a popular concept in the world out there who want low risk, low reward, but at least they get a little bit of reward, and they'll just stash those rewards away like a squirrel, and that will feed them and satiate them for the rest of their lives. And it really takes an extraordinary person to be able to live that aspect, specifically through our practice, high risk, high rewards, and share that with others who are on that edge, on that cusp of looking for something that can give them that. And so I put that out there for you guys to say, wonderful job in taking high risks and receiving high rewards in your lives, and really commend you for working with that peace around the fear and the scariness of pushing beyond the limits that our ego sets for us, pushing beyond the known into the unknown, and having some cool adventures there. I'll share this funny story that I mentioned earlier that I would share with regards to kind of high risks and high rewards. So, in my latest trip to Dominica, I was able to do this kind of initial Discover Scuba class. So I wasn't able to have time to certify for scuba diving, but I was able to experience it and loved it immensely. So much so the first day that I wanted to come back, and even if I couldn't get certified, just wanted to just dive again. So this is my second day diving ever in this lifetime, and I end up with a different instructor than the first day because they're busy. So I go in with this instructor, and he's very, very kind, checking my gauges, make sure I have enough air, and if I'm floating too much, he puts the weights in me so I sink a little bit further down so I can be closer to the fishies and the coral. And at one point, he has this little, it looks like a white clipboard, but he's able to carry it underwater where it has all these written things on it. So he's kind of being my tour guide underwater. It's like, oh, you see that purple thing? And I was like, yeah. And then he'll point on his clipboard. It's like, oh, those are fish eggs. And I was like, oh, cool. And the sign for cool or okay or good is kind of like your pointer finger and your thumb together, kind of like A-OK sign. You don't want to do the thumbs up, because when you do the thumbs up, it means you want to go up to the surface. So I had to keep catching myself. I'm like, oh, cool, thumbs up. I mean, oh, A-OK, it's great. I don't want to go up. No, I don't want to go up. So he's showing me all these various things, and we come across this. I want to say it's some old abandoned ship, but it didn't look like a ship. Obviously, it's been so old, and it was kind of like a piece that had fallen off, and all this algae had grown over it. Looked like just another rock, quite honestly, with if I look closely enough, some bolts of screws and nuts and bolts and stuff on the thing. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And as we're looking at this thing, and we're not very deep because, again, I'm not certified. It's only my second day out. So let's say we're 40 feet on the bottom. I see this really dark shadow cross over kind of the top of my snorkel mask. And I thought, oh, geez, it's a big one. I'm thinking it's a big fish. Because I mean, you just feel and see this shadow. And I haven't looked up. I'm just seeing this shadow come down. I'm like, oh wow, this is a big fish, and thank goodness I was calm enough to keep my I don't know what they call it. It's not the respirator thing. Oh, regulator, yes. Okay, in my mouth, and I kept breathing, and I look up, and it wasn't a fish. It was actually my other instructor, dive instructor, that was swimming down because he was doing a snorkel tour, and he wanted to try and get the respirator off my other drive instructor because he have two always, one spare one, so that he can show them this cool little ship down there. And he was flailing around. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But I calmed myself down, and afterwards got a good laugh with my instructor and the other instructor when we came out of the water. And I just think to myself, yes, high risk, high reward. You gotta go big or go home. And I was like, because there was that moment when that shadow crossed my mask, like, oh, okay, I'm in for it. Could be a shark. What is this? It was a cool experience. It was fun later. But just a funny story and example of, when we do things that feel very risky, the rewards are hugely beneficial. And when we have this practice in our life that has already built a foundation and a basic structure for us that we can work, it is really powerful and really a huge blessing and gift in our lives that we can then apply in all these other ways. Thank you so much. And any questions?
They let you get in the water.
Uh-huh.
They give you some classroom instruction.
Yes, on the first day, they did give me some classroom instruction, gave me like 3 exercises in the more shallow end of the water because I was like, yeah, how long we can be in the water for? And the dive instructor, first day is like, calm down. We need to see how you are in the water. We need to see how you react with the water around you. I'm like, okay, wait, how long are we going to stay in the water? Wait, how deep are we going to go?
Oh,
I was so excited. And
you got down to 40 feet. You went a long way.
oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
What is-
that's I only went down to 35.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that was after I did a long course
Oh,
to
really?
know how to do that.
Okay, interesting. And honestly, I feel like it's a testimony of, our practice of meditation, because once you sunk deep enough, you had to know how to retrieve your respirator,
Yeah,
if you lost it, and then you had to figure out how to clear your mask, which I didn't really enjoy that, but I did it. And then afterwards, it was just kind of breathing and kind of moving. And I kept trying to be human, as I would call it, in the water, because I tried to be vertical as I'm swimming. And I'm like, oh no, I need to be like horizontal, like a fish. Oh, really, acquiring these different attributes. And it's like, oh no, I just flick my feet and my fins. I don't need to flail my arms. It doesn't do anything. This is a really interesting concept. Yeah, completely different. And I again going back to the meditation practice, because they were saying, "Wow, you didn't use that much oxygen." Like for a first day beginner, I was like, "Meditation," but I don't think they got it. But I took the risk of sharing, the practice of meditation, and yes, yes.
I know that's one of the big ones.
Yeah, I've never done it because tanks are huge. I was gonna say, how would it be on it?
So it's they say it's 30 pounds for the tank, but here's the thing is I highly recommend, if you guys ever want to scuba dive, definitely make the trip out to Dominica, because this dive shop, the guys carried the tank down to the water, so I didn't have to haul it. I'm no joke. And they hauled it back for me, and each one had all the, I mean, I had my like basic vest and kind of stuff like that. And at one point I was like, oh, this is nice. I feel like a queen, you know, just pamper me and cater to this
There
and
may
that.
be
They're really
something
great.
to that.
I was gonna ask George.
Yeah, I took the Patty course.
It
Mm,
was here in the.
Well, it was in the US.
Yes,
Mm.
there's a
know,
lot
and-
more regulations.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, probably
right.
true.
I took the Patty course, and then I found out that teacher here, he became a master diver.
Mm-hmm.
He was like really into it.
Yeah, Rama put together a beautiful video. He came in blue.
Yes.
Oh, yes, we might have. He's in the closet. If not, I'm sure Lakshmi has some about part of that stash. If you guys haven't watched that video, it's really worth it.
Yeah.
It's a more of a meditation nature video. So
Yes.
just watching the fish.
Yeah.
watching the fish. And probably about 3/4 of the way through, there's Rama swimming around. the
Yes.
fish and being silly.
Yes.
You love being in the water because, you know, if you discovered it feels really good. You don't
Yeah.
feel that human aura.
No. So quiet.
Yes, it's way different.
Very different. Yes. And I think you're right. I wasn't under all those regulations. They were very lax with me.
Down to 40 feet after. Well, it was the second day or this first day.
First day, I was in between the 40 and 60.
First of all, you have a natural ability to be able to go that deep. It's not something that everybody can do because your ears, your inner
Right.
ear,
Yes, I had to keep
inner
clear.
ear
Mhm.
has to work for you to be able to go that deep.
Oh.
Because there's times when you can't clear.
Yes. And it's painful.
It is extremely painful. You
Yes.
can't go any deeper.
Oh,
And
I didn't know that.
Typically, you take time to get down deeper. So if you went down deep the first time,
I better be really careful then.
well, it just confirms everything you talked about. High risk, high
Mm.
reward.
Mm.
Also, you must have an adaptability to be able to do that.
Thank you. And yes, I feel really comfortable in the water. I think that's the other thing. Although checking in, I don't always like to be so close to the girl, and they kept trying to sink me down. I'm like, I don't want to be like touching them. You know? But- exactly. But then they were mentioning that because of my snorkel mask, it's like tempered glass, it magnifies things 33%. So I'm like, oh, it's really not that close. I'm just like, don't touch me. And it's not that close. I'm like, oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, and you're supposed to be careful with them.
Yes.
They're living beings.
That's right. That's right.
And human touch.
Of course.
Good.
Of course. So I definitely I did not touch anything, although the irony of it is I don't have a huge fear, but I'm not keen on spiders per se, but I am getting better with them. And of course, he picks up this one crustacean looking thing that looks like a spider. And it's like moving and clinging, and he holds it to me first day, and I was like, "No, don't make me touch it. I don't want it." That was like that. No, thank you. Yeah. He's like, "Oh, cool, letting it." But he was really kind. He just saw me, and he's like, "Okay." You know, he didn't freak me out anymore. Like but I was like, "Oh my god." Anyways. Yes, highly recommend. Yes, and just agreed. Just amazing being in water and not having to be even deep, but just water truly is a wonderful barrier for just noise. Yeah. So on that note, did you have something else you wanted to share, Ross? Okay. Let's meditate then. So take high risks in your life in regards to your practice so that you can reap the highest rewards. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for allowing me to be here teaching in a very high risk way. Yes, there is intelligence around it. It's not blindly, absolutely blindly. Yes, stepping off a cliff or anything. Yes, you step off with a cliff and have parachute or something. Or a skydiving suit. Yes, it is. I'm sure it is. And that's the interesting thing that we have to play with as practitioners, because there's this I don't want to say flippant, way of how we are with life and death. I think is just that we find a little more ease around life and death than maybe others, and makes me think of, I guess, the reef that we were swimming in is a natural reserve place, and they had what they call wardens to kind of like park rangers, if you will, that manage the area. And one of the wardens, as I was getting into the water on the second day, was, trying to scare me a little bit. There supposedly is no sharks in that area. They're like, well, be careful, you might get eaten. I was like, it's okay. If they take one bite at me, I just make my way slowly to the shore or something like that. He's like, no, these fishes down here, they come and get you, just one bite and you're gone. I was like, oh, even better. I was like, no misery. I'm just done. And he's like, not understanding how I'm not freaking out. And I was like, he's like, well, don't you have like a boyfriend or a husband? I was like, yeah, I have a husband. He's like, what would he think about that? I was like, I think he would understand very well that, I was part of the cycle of life. I was lived and died and became food for fish. And he's like, and he just is like, I just can't get this girl freaked out. Like, you're not gonna freak me out. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go. I'm okay with it. I've come to peace with it. But it was just funny to see him go on and on of all the different ways of trying to, scare me. I was like,
That's a really interesting conversation.
oh, I'm sure for him.
I listen to that like, well, that's great.
Yes,
That's great.
yes.
That's great. That's way to stay exactly where you.
Yes, I can only imagine the reactions he got from all the other people before me, and I didn't get.
Probably sitting somewhere right now telling the story of this
This crazy Asian
California that
Yeah.
felt fine if she was to be fish food. Excited to be fish food. Be part of the cycle of life.
Well, we're familiar with the Tibetan practices where, the deceased in the bodies they supposedly take, to the top of some mountain or hill, a special sacred place.
Yeah, the aerial barrel.
Yeah, and they feed it to the.
We saw about that. I always wondered when I read it what it meant.
Yes.
And then I saw something.
Yeah.
And there is somebody that goes up there and makes it easier for them to get into the things.
Yeah, sure. It's
because then they take everything.
Mm-hmm. It probably looks gruesome, from the outside, but the concept.
It's actually a very beneficial thing.
Of course.
For the community, because it keeps everything
Clean.
healthy.
Yeah.
Disease.
Right. Yeah.
It gets taken.
Cycle of life.
Earth is the ultimate recycler.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Not true. She's amazing. Yeah.
Space.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Heather. That was great.
Thank you so much.
I love the music. Really stimulating.
Oh, cool.
Third
Awesome.